Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream today. We have got our special guest back, Alex Smith from MindManager. So we're going to be talking about MindManager today. We're going to be talking about all things project management. And just as a FYI, if you've got any questions or comments for any of us today as we're going through this, don't hesitate to put it in the comments area. We've got it up here. You can see Jared is welcoming everybody to the live stream. So if you have any questions as we're going along there, go ahead and put those in and we will be sure to answer them. We're grateful that you have taken time out of your busy day to share with us this event, and hopefully you will walk away with some knowledge that will help you. So let's bring the team up here. Now, Alex is his camera is a little wonky today, so we just got a picture of Alex. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing well. I wish my camera was doing as good as I am. But
Yeah,
actually, this picture is from a little while ago, so I look pretty good. I have to admit,
yeah,
I'm
no, it's
excited.
looking good. He's got the right the lights coming in perfect, the great
Yeah.
shadows. No, it's looking good,
Looking into
looking
the
good.
future. Yeah.
And then we've got Jared with us here, who's moderating all the questions and all that sort of stuff, and so we're gonna dive in. So, I mean, we all deal with projects. We may not call them projects, but we always have something that we're going to do that have multiple tasks, and we call those projects. And it can be, simple things like, planning a wedding,
Oh, simple.
selling a
Wow.
house. There's tons of different things that you can do, right? Alex,
I
you've
don't know.
you've
I don't know if any brides would agree that planning a wedding is simple. I thought you were gonna say like writing a grocery list, but you said, "Wow, jumping out the window to plan a wedding."
I've
That
actually
sounds
built a
hard, man.
mind map when my daughter was getting married. I built a mind map, putting all the different things that needed to be done in there, and being the dad, right? What were the
You got to
costs for
pay for
those
all of it.
things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
That's smart.
So yeah, so we all deal with this, and it's just a matter of coming up with, well, what's the best way to organize this stuff? And then when we get into business, it gets more complex, or can get more complex. I mean, for myself, I use MindManager for marketing, website development, operations, standard operating procedures, database design, and the list just goes on and on. Software development, we use it, MindManager, all the time for that. So I want to just show just a couple of things really quick that I do, and then we're going to flip over to Alex, and Alex is going to talk about project management, and he's also going to talk about Jira, which if you've ever used Trello. Jira is the big brother to Trello. So I think a lot of people have probably tested out Trello, and probably didn't know about Jira because I didn't know about it, Alex.
Well, it's definitely a very, very well thought out platform. I mean, ultimately, it's the perfect tool to work with My Manager if you have a lot of data in that system, but you're having trouble trying to visualize it, maybe segment it into subcomponents, that sort of thing. So
Right.
it's a very exciting integration. It's something that the customers have asked for many years. So I'm excited that it's now part of the platform.
Yeah, cool, cool. Yeah, and then I think, Alex, you're going to speak about project management because a lot of people, I mean, there's so
Oh
many
yeah.
tools out there, but you don't have one and I've played around with lots of different productivity tools with regards to project management, and I have not found one as diversified as MindManager as far as its capability of doing so many different things and kind of fitting your needs. And I'm all about wrapping the software around how I need to do things, and that's why we like the CRM software, because we can wrap it around a business model. Well, the same thing is here with MindManager. You can kind of wrap how you want to do this. You want Kanban charts. You want different kinds of analysis things. It's all there. So, Alex, any questions or comments before we pop into me? I'll just do a quick little spin and then throw it into your lap.
No, I think that you've obviously spent enough time in My Manager to know the highlights of why this is a very revolutionary kind of tool. It's a one of a kind product. So no, I think you did an excellent job, and thank you, Gary.
Okay, so let me jump over to my screen here. So you can see here, and I've shown this a ton of times, and the reason I keep showing this a ton of times is because a lot of people aren't doing this. We call it a marketing plan. I call it a communication plan because marketing has a connotation of I'm trying to sell something, and not all the time you're trying to sell something. Sometimes you're educating, sometimes you're informing, and so this is one that I use right here for planning out our communication plan. Jared and I use this together. We have all our blog posts, we have our live streams, we have videos on demand that we're going to create, and we have it for the whole year. And then we can just pop down and say, okay, what do we have for week 1, week 2, week 3 as we're building this out. And so this is what we use for that. And then I'm going to show this one, and hopefully the client that we're working with, a little promotion for them. Here's where we're actually doing a website review and then redevelopment. And so we just pulled up all their different web pages and links and color scheme and fonts, and put this all together. And so this can be used for so many different things. And so you really want to think out of the box where you can actually take this tool and kind of analyze the things you're wanting to do. So this is just a couple of ideas. We're going to flip this over to Alex now. And Alex, go ahead and take on.
Thank you, Gary. I have to admit that first example that you showed, that is still something that I find to be one of the best use cases in MindManager, is creating that timeline sort of experience, and then being able to segment your life into those, really easy to digest kind of chunks. That is still one of my favorite things that MindManager is capable of. Now, obviously, when you pair that with the ability to filter content down based on the kinds of markers that you were using, I noticed that you had like the little blog logo and many other markers. It's really a great way to sift through large amounts of data, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about today with the Jira integration for MindManager, specific to the project management side of things. So as we start to get into it, let's take a look at the agenda. First and foremost, I'm going to give you a complete overview of MindManager. That will be the section where we talk about how to incorporate project management elements within a MindManager file. After that, we'll talk a little bit about Jira. This is, again, not a true Jira-based discussion, but more about how does Jira impact what you can already do and the efficiency that you already have with MindManager, but how do we add on to that? And then we'll talk about the benefits, obviously, of integrating both of those systems together. I'll explain a little bit of the integration process. It's fairly simple, but there are some nuanced details that I do want to make sure that we cover, so that if somebody does go out and try to download the trial, they'll have a good shot at it. And then lastly, we'll do a live demo of data talking from one system into the other, being in Jira, pushing information into MindManager, being in the MindManager maps, and pushing information into the Jira platforms. And then, of course, time at the end for any questions that the audience may have had. So first and foremost, let's talk about MindManager. This is a absolutely game-changing piece of software, and it's a visualization tool at its core, right? So a lot of people will call it a mind mapping tool. I don't like that terminology because I feel like that puts a picture in people's heads. And Gary, you can stop me if you think I'm wrong, but anytime I say mind map, somebody visually represents to themselves what that means. And I find that it becomes a very limiting experience. So I like to call it a visualization tool because, and here's a great example in this little thumbnail here, as you can see, it's probably hard for you to pinpoint exactly which one of these types of diagrams is actually a mind map. If anything, it's probably this element right here in the center, but everything else outside of that is an org chart, it's some kind of a board, it's some kind of a flow diagram. So it's not truly just a mind mapping piece of software. So here, for example, we have a SWOT analysis, we have a flow chart down below, we have a project related document formatted in an org chart. We've even got a full manual style diagram so that you can actually walk through a piece of equipment inside of the mind mapping canvas as well. So I mean, I like the term visualization tool because it really does help you to just kind of identify that hey, whatever I need to visualize, there's probably a path forward if I use MindManager in the right way. And
Yeah,
so
that's actually a good description of it, a visualization tool. I think, and mind map, the concept behind mind mapping is amazing, and it does really work well with the brain as you're kind of flushing stuff out. Because I've used this for to flush out business processes and stuff like that, and it's great for doing that. But you're right, it's a visualization tool, and that's really what mind map is. Mind mapping is a visualization tool. This is just gives you different formats of that. So yeah, I love that. I think that if you're okay with that, I'm gonna start using that term visualization tool as opposed to a mind mapping tool.
absolutely, please. I would have it no other way. And so when we're talking about the different kinds of examples that I did just show, I want to start by going up to the File and New ribbon area here. This is the blank template space. For those of you that are brand new to MindManager, I would absolutely say this is probably the first place that you're going to want to get familiar with. Now, as you can see, many different kinds of visualizations are possible. So I'll give you a little lay of the land as far as what to expect. Now, these 5 items here, from radio map through timeline, those are what we call hierarchy-based diagrams. And that essentially means that they all have one sort of starting point, and then they grow outwardly from that direction, downward or outward, however you want to describe it. Now, the thing to keep in mind here about these, and this is actually the example that Gary was just showing, in fact, the thing to keep in mind about these is that these are summary relative documents. So you can actually summarize the content from the lowest levels back up to this parent topic at the very top or the very left, however you formatted it. But ultimately, that parent topic can be a summary of all of the information in that document. And as we start to build these files, you'll understand a bit more about that. Now, that is a very, very big leap from some of the other mapping canvases that we have here. So in the flow charting and concept mapping space, those operate in a completely different fashion. In the hierarchy diagrams, we can collapse the branches and reduce the amount of content that's visually on the screen by, again, simply collapsing a branch structure. On a flow chart or a concept map, you have to then leverage filters. And this is really useful when you want to see maybe an ideal process compared to a current process. So maybe a future state versus a current state kind of a diagram. That way you can start to piecemeal together what steps or what mini projects or tasks are going to be necessary that take you from your current state to your future state. So 2 different ways to kind of skin the same cat, right? Minimizing the amount of data that's on the screen for consumption, either by collapsing branches with the hierarchy diagrams or using a filter in your basic and concept style of mapping. Now, the canvas itself is wide open, so it does allow you to layer things together. So you can bring together shapes, images, and text boxes to create things that are truly one-of-a-kind diagrams, as you saw in the example with the lawnmower, in fact. All of those images were gathered from an actual manual. We then put them into MindManager and turned them into a digital representation. So in that same vein, you can use MindManager as a presentation tool as well. Obviously, you're going to see my presentation today, so that's a good enough example of some of the capabilities there. But again, layering content together, be it shapes, images, or text boxes, is a great way to start to create that one-of-a-kind experience. And again, why I truly don't think this is a mind mapping piece of software. It just has so many ways to visualize the data. And speaking specifically about the data that MindManager is able to render and ultimately make more use out of, the Kanban experience is something that looks at all of the metadata across your diagrams. So that could be start dates, due dates, levels of progress, the specific tags or any kind of custom naming conventions that you've applied to those topics. All of these are viewable in that Kanban board style experience where you have columns that go from left to right. So it's a very, very wide open piece of software. But I will say this, the best way to get used to the MindManager platform is based on the Learning Center. So here on the left side of the screen, you can see that these are going to take you to the Learning Center. This is a series of tutorials that you essentially get to walk through and test out. The awesome part about this is it starts to build out muscle memory within you, because it actually is prompting you on what to click and where to find the specific features that you're looking for relative to your use case. So if you are somebody that is coming to us for using a project management side of things, start with this module here. Maybe after you've developed something and you need to share it with someone, you could come and jump into the sharing module. This is a great way to learn about getting the content into the hands of others via Excel, Microsoft Word, or just exporting the map as itself in a HTML capacity that allows anybody with a browser to essentially open that file, and they can even change the material, but they can't edit it. And so what do I mean by change? Well, they can run a filter for things that are due this week. They can run a filter for things that are assigned to them. They can expand and collapse the branches. So it is an interactive experience. It's just not an editable experience. So hopefully that made sense, Gary. I don't want to confuse anybody with the differences between editing and just kind of utilizing the document to its fullest ability.
No, that makes sense.
Excellent. So now that we have a little bit of a foundation at our feet, let's start talking about how these maps actually work. So you can see I'm here in my actual canvas for working inside the mind map. If I go ahead and zoom out here, I'm going to show you a little bit about how this structure was put together. So you can see we've just got rectangles with the information, the logo, text box, again, just kind of positioning all of the information where we would see it kind of best fit for the relative experience on a monitor. Now, obviously, if you've got multiple monitors and things like that, the world is your oyster. You can kind of go crazy. So let's slide to the side here, and I'm just going to go ahead and double click once, and you can see I immediately start with a blank topic. So what we're going to do is try to create a bit of a project out of this file. So the first thing I want to do is start to develop the phases that we're going to be working in. So phase A, for example, and then we'll have maybe a list of tasks, right? So let's say that we've got 4 or 5 items here, and now we're going to copy this. I'm just going to use Control on my keyboard, paste it in again, and now I'm going to name this B. So we've got a project that has ultimately 2 phases to start with, and now down below that are any of the tasks. Now the great thing about this is maybe the task itself, I need to reference a document, so I can put that here. Maybe I have a set of notes that I want to capture about that particular task, you name it. And then of course I can track the execution right here on the parent topic, and that will allow me to identify the level of progress as 0 for now, start date as today, or technically yesterday, I apologize. And immediately, I didn't even realize I was doing that, but immediately you have been introduced to one of the most advanced and awesome features about MindManager, which is called Smart Rules. So at the top of the screen here, you can see Smart Rules is a way to automate the document in the background. So it's actually monitoring the information that you're giving it, and it allows you to set rules and triggers that will then take effect as things happen in the map. So as you'll notice, as soon as I included a date that was beyond today, so literally yesterday, it changed the look and feel of the topic. It added a symbol for us to be able to filter against. So it literally understands what we're up against, and it's looking at those specific components. Now, here's something that you do have to pay attention to. As you can see, I've just added that same start date and due date to this topic, but MindManager requires 3 different elements to be able to essentially assess the health of this topic. And that is, of course, the final item that they need, which is a progress marker. So it's doing a small calculation in the background. It's looking at the amount of progress compared to the date that this item is due. And so if we have essentially passed that due date and we have not reached 100%, it will then automatically highlight that topic in red and include a new icon on it. And the inverse is true. If we finish something, it's going to highlight in green and give us a check mark icon. And again, all of this content is filterable. So if we want to quick filter to show topics that were past due in our document, very quickly we could hover over that icon anywhere that we see it, choose that right click option, and then quick filter. Of course, to remove it, we just go to the upper corner here and trigger it, and it's back to green. Now, something else to keep in mind here is that the concept of managing tasks in MindManager is only one way to look at things as far as the mapping canvas goes. So let's go ahead and include some additional start dates and due dates here, and we'll dive into that discussion a little bit further. All right, so now you can see that every item on this particular list is considered past due. Well, the thing to keep in mind here is obviously this is a lot of things to handle, right? We've got a different set of phases, we've got multiple tasks, maybe we're documenting some things, taking notes on things. It's probably not all going to happen on the exact same day. So if we wanted to view this in, let's say, a Gantt chart style capacity where we have a bit of a timeline, identifying these tasks from left to right and kind of monthly or weekly in that case, we could then trigger all of these, kind of get them all highlighted, and include a dependency between them. And that way, if any of them are a finish to start, we can apply them to all. And now automatically you'll see that it has essentially pushed everything out by a 1 day duration. And that's of course going to take into account any weekends or things like that. So you will see some jumps like we have here between 5.3 and 5.6. And of course, if you work weekends, you can update the MindManager's default calendars and you can include Saturdays and Sundays. So we've got you covered there as well. But now what the system has done is identify that, okay, well, actually not everything is past due. We're only past due on this first particular item. And because this is a necessary component before we can kick off, step number 2, 3, or 4, we have a dependency identifying the connections between those. And then again, as these items are completed, you can set another rule that will automatically assign the next step to someone. So let's take a look at how that would work. We'll go into the adding rule, and I'm going to call this the done rule. I'm going to select a trigger, and my trigger could be many, many things. It can be icons that are placed on the topic, the number of subtopics, any of the properties, a resource that we assign it to. The list just goes on and on. But for this one, I'm just going to look at task progress. And I'm going to say if it is equal than or greater than 100%, I want a couple of things to happen. So the first thing is I'm going to add a resource, and let's say that anything that's completed in this map I then want to review. So I'm going to add my own name, and let's say we want to add another effect, and we want to include a tag, and we want that tag to be from our Kanban experience, and the tag we're looking for is done. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and press OK here, and you can immediately see that it has now been tagged as a done item. It has been assigned to Alex for review, so on and so forth. And these icons are drag and drop friendly, so I can literally park this check mark anywhere throughout the diagram, and every time I do it, you can see that that rule is now taking effect. It is applying it to Alex, listing it as done, changing the fill color, and all of that is just scratching the surface of what MindManager is capable of from a project capacity. So Gary, here I'm going to take a pause to see if yourself or Jared have any questions or comments from the audience.
Yeah, no questions from the audience yet. I definitely love this part about the MindManager myself, just having to set due dates and done dates and stuff, and then also being able to filter it. It just makes it so you stay on top of things, and I feel like in modern day times now, it's so hard to stay on top of all the tasks you got to do. So very cool feature.
And another thing I like about it is if you look below on the right-hand side on the task info, you can actually add costs to things. So if there's labor costs, like, okay, we're assigning Alex, what does that cost for Alex? Or you could have a cost for maybe any kind of supplies or whatever. It will add all of that up, and so you can actually track the dollar amounts as well as the labor amounts going with that.
So as you can see, while Gary was talking, I just went ahead and added some of those elements into it. So the first thing to keep in mind is that you can have a general cost. Maybe that's something like purchasing a piece of equipment or some kind of a rental that you have to pay for. And then, of course, down below, you have a resource cost, and that could be the salary that you're paying somebody to accomplish. Now, that does offer a secondary set of kind of sub multiplications there in the background. It's essentially taking the amount of hours that that person is working in that day, multiplying it by their hourly rate, and then giving you a ballpark number on what you're going to spend for that particular resource. Now, of course, that could be again, a piece of rental equipment rather than someone's name, right? So it doesn't have to be Alex. It could be, a truck for deliveries or something along those lines, whatever the case may be. But you're absolutely right, Gary, and that also does show in the Gantt chart. So let's go ahead and jump into that other view here, and we'll trigger the View tab at the top of the screen, open the Show Gantt Pro option here, and here we are. So you can see even total cost is appearing in this section as well. And to the right is where we're going to see those tasks. And this is a editable piece of the pie. So as you can see, as I jump into these items and then extend them out, because we have included those dependencies, is automatically shifting all of the other project relative items and essentially showing us that, hey, at the earliest we could complete this is just about August of 2024 based on everything having to be completed on time. So Mind Manager, again, visualization tool. Don't ever let anybody tell you this is a mind mapping software. I don't even know mind mapping softwares had Gantt charts built in them until I started working at this company. So, I mean, it truly is an interesting and unique piece of the pie. And so I think that Mind Manager is definitely something that you should add to your arsenal if you haven't already. And if you are somebody that's looking at this from the perspective of identifying the resources, there is also a resource chart that will help you to identify who's overutilized, where can you where can you apply a few more bodies to get things done a little bit faster. And of course, all of this is exportable and printable. So if you are somebody that works in an environment where they are using MS Project, you can export all of the information from your Gantt chart, hand that over to them, and they can take the ball and run with it in MS Project as well. So we're not trying to make you convince everybody that the Mind Manager is the best way to go. We want you to be able to meet them where they are. But if you have one of those brains and one of those minds that really does meld well with the experience of a mind map, more power to you. So those are some of the high level elements about project management when it comes to this space and the idea of how does Jira work into this. Well, we're talking about the ability to
Just
kind of
hey,
automate.
Alex, sorry,
Yeah.
just before you take your next step into Jira, can you just show quickly how, as they're working on a project, you've got the different subtopics with a cost in there that you can they can upload to the total cost of that particular project?
Oh wow, I love that. Yeah, so that's that's actually why I used this example, and I totally forgot to show that. So early on, I did tell you about the hierarchy diagrams being collapsible and having all of that content be a summary at the parent levels. Well, let's say, for example, that we wanted to identify phase A here, and we want to roll up our cost. All I have to do is check mark that box there, and then it's going to identify that, hey, because this is 17 work days, Alex is assigned as a resource, and he's making, let's say, $20 an hour. This is going to be the cost for this particular item. But of course, we're going to want to see that for each and every task that is a part of this phase. And then, of course, if you want to go another level higher than that, you can trigger that roll-up cost to the overall project level, and you'll get that info from there as well. That way, if any of these start to generate cost, that will be captured there as well. So let's go ahead and put in $1,000 there, and here we are. The other thing is you can also highlight any of these levels and then choose to roll up the task info as well. So from here, we are looking at a task percentage of 97%, and that's again going to be a total duration of 39 work days, and we have a cost of just over $7,500 to pull off phase A. And of course, if we want to shift that to one level higher, being able to incorporate all of these components as well, again, just moving that back to the parent topic for both of those items. And here we are. So even with these elements collapsed, you still have the ability to look at all of this kind of summary relative material. And that's again just one way to go about building projects when it comes to Mind Manager. Everything that I've done is pretty much manual, but let's say that you do have Mind Manager relative information inside of other kinds of documents, right? Maybe it's stored in an Excel file, maybe it's stored in a SharePoint document library or data list. Maybe that information is in Jira. So all of those integrations are going to be found on the advanced ribbon for Mind Manager right there next to Smart Rules. But you have Outlook, Excel Data Mapper, SharePoint, and Jira as well. And these are some of the biggest integrations that we have come out with, and it's one of the reasons that we're considered a Microsoft Gold partner as well. And even the look and feel of the canvas today feels like a Microsoft kind of platform. So it's definitely something that we take very highly, and we're very, very passionate about it. So now that we've built a bit of a project, let's take a look at what Jira is all about, and we'll talk about that as we kind of gear up for our live demo of how this all works. So Jira is ultimately a project and task tracking kind of experience. Now, the thing about it is it has its own user interface, and it looks really neat and really clean, but finding some of the information can be a little difficult. So here's a quick screenshot of how some of these recent projects will look inside of a Jira environment. You've got your users listed out here, the items that have been going on that are more or less recent listed on the left here. And then of course you can select through some of these different view angles to see exactly what's been assigned to you, what you've been working on, anything that you've kind of favorited, stuff like that. So it's a great platform in and of itself. Now, where Mind Manager starts to gain a little bit of value here is that you can then mix and match information and have these maps become the I guess you would say the visualization, the visual front end for how you get to this information, if that makes sense. So the boards themselves, they're very dynamic. It does allow you to do a lot of prioritization. It allows you to kind of manage the sprints and the kind of plans that you have going on. It allows you to tag things with specific issue types, right? So if you have things that are some kind of an error that are going to affect a specific server, something along those lines, you can make that very plain and be able to filter against that. And of course, the goal there is to streamline what you're doing, be able to make sure everybody's on the same page and collaborating in an effective way, making sure that transparency is a top component. But as I said, transparency is there, but sometimes you can have muddied waters, and that's when the benefits of integrating with MindManager become apparent. So let's take a deeper look at that. So when I say the benefit of MindManager is that you get more clarity, I'm talking about that idea of enhancing your visualization and being able to really clearly see the strategies that you have for yourself going forward. So on the right here, we have some different examples of ways that specific roles could kind of bridge the gap between MindManager and Jira and what their overall experience should be. Now, when we're talking about MindManager, it's pretty apparent that if you're using a hierarchy diagram with all of those extendable branches, it is very, very easy to go from the high level all the way down to the ground level and see each and every specific detail. If you have a question, right, about, hey, why is this past due? Or, why does this cost so much? You'll be able to drill down into each and every one of those components. Maybe it's something that had happened upstream. Maybe it was an item that got bumped by 3 weeks because someone was on vacation. You can see all of that in MindManager a little bit more clearly based on all of the resource allocation that you can do, all of the Gantt charts that are at your disposal, things along those lines. The other goal here is to reduce errors and to kind of streamline the experience between colleagues as they are moving through these sprint or project phases, right? Making sure that, hey, if I have a rule that says anything that is beyond today's date, I want it to be purple and I want it to have yellow font and I just want it to scream at me, pay attention, something's wrong here. I can do that in a tool like MindManager, as you just saw with the brief example on the item that was past due. But that's only one thing to consider. Maybe you're somebody that doesn't really care about the timeline of things. Maybe you're a person that cares about the budget of something. Well, you can have another set of rules in the exact same document as your colleagues, and those rules can be all designed based on the idea of staying on budget. That way, if something requires over $500, for example, you can set a limit and says, hey, over $500, I need to manually approve this, and I can have that become a part of the document as well. And you can be listed as a resource on any of those elements. So, I mean, it really does change the way that you can digest the information, right? It really brings it to the forefront and tells you where you should be spending your time. So, I mean, it's truly about optimizing your workflows and being able to, at a high level, see your process from beginning to end in many, many different ways. So first, we're going to talk about how to actually establish the connection between the two systems. I'll do that again at a very, very high level. I don't want to spend too much time on the kind of back-end housekeeping items, but do want to save some time at the end of this call for any questions that the audience has. So first and foremost, you are going to have some prereqs. You want to make sure that you are on MindManager 23.1 or newer. Currently, we're on 23.2, just so that everyone is aware. You'll also want to make sure that you have the correct set of Jira plugins available to you. So it does support the Jira software, service management, work management, and product discovery. So all of those are definitely functional. And of course, after that, all you have to do is essentially get logged in, make sure that you grant the correct amount of access between the two different systems. And then, of course, you have the experience of now creating your first import within that Jira space. The same is accessible for the Jira Data Center, which is essentially their offline version. So I'm not going to walk through the second row here because, again, it's essentially the same, just two different locations. Now, once you're in the system and you actually want to grab that information, and again, keep in mind here that we're talking about the steps that we just did manually, right? Start dates, due dates, progress markers. We're talking about building one of those, but without any of the manual effort that you just saw me put into it. So we're now just saying, hey, all of this information exists somewhere, but I want it to be visualized as a map. So that's the main use case that we're describing here, the ability to create what we just did, but in the snap of a finger using data that's already in one system or another. And speaking of the data, keep in mind here that the filters do return results from multiple projects, which can be super, super helpful because even once you have it in the MindManager, you can have them segmented by project. That way, if you don't care about one or two projects, you can simply filter them out of your view and you don't have to worry about it. So to initiate this, let's go ahead and take a look at a screenshot here. It's on the advanced ribbon and you're going to want to start there. First and foremost, go to advanced ribbon, then select the topic that you want to apply the actual import to. Go up to the Jira option there, and then trigger the location that you want to pull in data from. So only 4 steps to accomplish that. After that has been established, you will be greeted by this screen here. It will be called the import number 1, or whatever number of imports you're on at that point. So from there, that's when you actually start mapping which fields in Jira you want to represent locations in MindManager. So as an example, we have the reporter, that's going to be text. We have the status, that's going to be a property, which is different. And we're going to have key issues that are linked together. That way, if you do need to jump to another subsequent task and you want to be able to view that in Jira or in a mind map, you want to have that linked between the two. And then you can see here, we're just using the different terminologies, but essentially meaning the same thing. The assignee is the resource, and then priority is a one-to-one. And then we have the summary being text directly there in MindManager. So after you essentially establish all of these adjustments for yourself to, specifically how you want it, and you've obviously identified if you want a hierarchy list or a flat list, those kinds of things, just again, the background kind of housekeeping items. Once you've done that, that's when you will be able to then essentially run that import each and every time you want. You could come in, do it on a daily basis, and you don't have to re-establish all of these settings each and every time. It will just become a part of a list here. You can simply click it and execute it immediately. And keep in mind, if something pops up with an error message, it just means that you probably didn't map 1 or 2 fields together, and that's okay. Maybe you don't need those fields. So if you do see an error message from time to time, that is definitely normal, and you should still be able to get your results out of that. All right, so before we jump into the live examples, any questions from the audience, Jared or Gary?
Yeah, we don't have any questions from the audience. Excuse me.
Okay.
But that's cool that it integrates so easily with Jira there and pulling everything in.
Oh man, you haven't seen anything yet. This is an awesome
just the tip of the iceberg here.
Truly.
Oh,
So let's
cool.
go ahead and jump in. So if you've been with MindManager for any amount of time, you know that we have a built-in browser as well. And so that built-in browser allows us to essentially see the internet, but still be in our mind mapping canvas. So in this example, I have on the left side of the screen an actual look at the board that you would have as a user of Jira. So you can see that you have a task, it has a name, you can attach things to it. You can add comments, have a history of it, etc. But if you look along the left side of the screen, there are many, many other tasks and other items that you could essentially sift through. And if you needed something from there, you could simply click it. It would take over the screen here. But maybe you're one of those people that wishes, hey, I want to see all of these things on the screen at once, and I'd like to know exactly who's working on all of those things, simultaneously, and kind of have it. So as a side by side, right, in the Jira space, you're looking at one task at a time. But in the MindManager space, here is task B4 directly alongside A4. And I can see exactly who's working on what. It's a lot easier for me to sort of digest. Now, let's say that I also want to leverage this material. I can go to Annette's name, quick filter, and show topics with that marker. Now I'm just looking at the results from the resource Annette. That way I can have a meeting with her. I can, do a powwow, make sure I'm up to date on tasks 3, 4, 2, and 4 from the 2 different relative epics that she's working on. And I've created in a moment's notice, I've created an ad hoc agenda for a one-on-one with this person so that we are making sure that we are staying on the same page. If there are any bottlenecks, I can be alerted ASAP. If there's somebody else that I need to tie into this, I can simply do that, and I'm working in MindManager. But let's say that I need to also have this discussion because I'm going to be updating something. Maybe I'm putting a net on this new task and I'm removing Reiner from that. Well, the awesome part about this is, uh-oh, oh no, not today, guys. And we just had our first error sending the information to Jira. No,
Dun dun
not
dun.
today. All
That doesn't
right.
happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often. I
No,
literally just tested this before our
It's a live stream. This is what happens.
that's
this
how
is
it
what
goes.
happened. So ultimately, I would have been making a change to put a net on this item, and I would have then been able to click on this link, and it would pull open here in the built-in browser of MindManager, and it would say that it was now assigned to a net. Why that didn't change, I don't know, but we're going to power through and we're going to try that again, just in case I did something wrong. That doesn't feel like I did, but I'm going to check anyway. So we're going to try one more time. All right, so now I know something's wrong. The system, the connection, something is down in the background because I just tried it a second time and it didn't do it. So I'm very apologetic. I have no answer as to why that is going on. I'm going to try to refresh our entire system here. So I'm just going to do an F5 on the entire project and see if it can pull the information in. Okay, so that connection is definitely working. So something is going on with the individual direction. So it's pulling information from Jira, but for some reason it's having trouble pushing information. So let's do that one more time. And maybe we have not fixed it. Okay, so everybody, definitely apologize. As you can see, I am able to render the information that's in Jira, and maybe it just requires maybe a log out, log back in kind of thing. We have a complete two-factor authentication, so it's several steps. Given that we're almost out of time for our call today, I'm not going to take the technical angle and try to really troubleshoot that. I'm going to try to go back to our presentation and jump into a different example. Maybe it's something relative to just that particular file. I'm going to hope anyway. And here we are. This one is already built in. This is a different project, UAM number 1. And so let's say that we want to move a net to here and remove Maxwell. And how about this one? No. So sending change is something that's going on. I do definitely apologize. This is the worst time that could have happened. But as I said before, it is a very, very, very well thought out piece of the pie. It does allow you to visualize everything that you have going on in Jira. And if you have all of the right systems and you've got tech support on hand, you can also push information into the Jira space as well. So after this call, that's exactly what I'll be doing, is doing a little powwow with my guys to find out what is going on with this exclamation point here. But again, a very, very versatile piece of the pie. It allows you to literally on one half of your screen see the content in the other systems and then have a map representation for that on the left. And this could be the same as the experience you have with SharePoint, Outlook, and Excel data mapper as well. So again, though the focus today is on the Jira platform, I want to be very clear that there are many ways and many integrations that allow you to really gather content, visualize it in different capacities in this MindManager space, and make the most out of it. And when we talk about visualization, I did show the Gantt chart, but let's go back to that Kanban experience here. So by going to the View tab at the top of the screen, that's where I can start to trigger whether or not I want to see this as an outline in a schedule capacity. I really do like the icon experience because, as you can see, it's breaking things out by level of priority. And even here in this experience, if we needed to, let's say, for example, filter for Maxwell just to see what items he's going to be working on, he can do that as soon as he comes into this document. And you'll notice this is Jira-based content. So if it has that diamond on it, it's Jira-based material. So even from that Jira experience, Maxwell has a new way to kind of dashboard his life, right? He knows that, hey, item number 1 is where I need to spend the bulk of my time until I can get that wrapped up. Then I'll shift over to the items in priority column 2. And it has the in progress markers versus the to do items, so we can tell he's already working on this top priority item. And again, that's a piece of filterable content. So if you weren't Maxwell, but you just wanted to see what is everybody working on, you could just simply filter against that in progress marker from here. So I mean, many different ways to kind of leverage this particular set of integrations, but it is not a Jira only experience, right? This could be a SharePoint list, this could be a document from Excel that has a project in it. I mean, the ways to apply this, it's truly endless. I mean, like I said, it could be literally just creating a grocery list of, I've seen those TikToks where they say wives send their husbands to the grocery store and they come back with all the wrong things. Well, I'm here to say that if you send them out with a mind map or, one of these MindManager documents, he's probably going to nail it. So thank you all for your time. It has been a pleasure presenting to you today. I'm going to turn the call back over to Gary.
Got a quick question for you. If on that Kanban chart that you're showing there, whether it's linked to Jira or Excel or whatever we're linking to, if say on that first, that priority 1, you moved it to priority 2, would that, I'm assuming that would update and push up the information to update the spreadsheet or Jira based on making those adjustments, correct?
Great question. So I will point out, and for this, I'll actually jump back to that advanced ribbon to talk about all of these individually. So in that experience that you just described, that is possible in SharePoint, Jira, and Outlook. Now, the Excel data mapper is actually an import only kind of experience. Now, you can export information, but I want to be very, very clear here. These 3, Outlook, SharePoint, and Jira, these are live syncing of information, right? So we are literally changing something in one system, it's updating in the other. The Excel data mapper is an import-export experience. So there is that extra set of steps in between, and it's not a live syncing of info. Does that make sense?
Yep. Can it also link to other data sources like SQL or anything like that? Can it link and push and pull information back and forth between other data sets?
Yes, it can. Absolutely.
Excellent.
And
with
those fields, by the way, that we
Go
were
ahead.
those fields that we were mapping, that's exactly how we were able to end up with this this set of data in these particular locations. So start dates, due dates, resources. So that section that I talked about mapping the fields between those systems, that's the same for the SharePoint experience as well, right? So you have the ability to sort of identify how you want some of these items to be rendered. So even if they are in SharePoint and they have one meaning, you can kind of shift that once they get over to MindManager. And if not, you can simply create a rule that then identifies one of the pieces of data from SharePoint and have that rule apply something to all of your topics in your map. So even if there's not a one-to-one relationship, because of smart rules being able to read the data, it can then create a one-to-one relationship in that way as a workaround, I guess.
Right. And I like the idea too of the data that's coming in from the source. So let's just say Jira in this case. You can change it in the map, and then it updates it back in the source of that information, like Jira. So it's neat how you can adjust either in Jira or you can adjust on the map itself.
Well, that's the idea, right? Is that you don't work in a silo. Maybe you're the person that really does understand the mind mapping canvas. You really do embrace this. This is how your mind works. Maybe somebody else is just a Jira guy or a Jira lady, and that's where they spend all day, every day, and that's just what they're comfortable with. But you want to make sure that everybody is, on the same page. And the great part about this is, even those Jira users, let's be really clear about this, those Jira only users that have no access to the mind map, they can still, through that learning experience, they can still receive the published or HTML version of your map. So they can still utilize it, right? Like I talked about at the very top of our call, they can still filter against that. They can still find their name and see everything that's going on as a dashboarded experience, even though they've never stepped foot in a MindManager document, they've never used it. They can get that export from you, literally be able to see and kind of sift through the information, but still have Jira as the way that they interact or interface with that information, right? So at the end of the day, they're doing the same thing, but they even gain another level of visibility because you can export this material, store it in a SharePoint location, put it up on a web page, you name it.
Yeah, and I've used that. I've used that feature, that sharing feature, and it's amazing because you can make adjustments. And I've sent this out to clients for different reasons. I've actually had some of our clients that have used MindMap in the health industry, where they've had patients where they would use a mind map for their patient profile and be able to update things and have the client review that. And so there's so many uses for that sharing. It's amazing. So you can actually track the progress of stuff, or enter in information and allow people individuals have access to that specific data that you're working on.
Without a doubt. I mean, it really does make it so that, again, even if you are somebody that's never heard of it, and that's definitely one thing that we hear often, is that once people get exposed to it, the first question they ask is, how did you build that? How did you make that? And this is just another extension of getting that document into their hands, because originally this was just like a PDF file. So it was very flat. It wasn't as interactive, you know what I mean? So once we started to get into the HTML space and you could literally filter against it, you can even change the views, right? So you can go to a Kanban board in the exported version. So it's so functional without being able to edit. That's the only thing you lose, is the editing rights. So as a viewer of that HTML canvas, you can still filter, you can still sift through everything, change the views, augment the angles. You just can't add any topics of your own.
Yeah, and one of the things Jared and I did last week, we did a live stream on artificial intelligence, and one of the topics we talked about was standard operating procedures, creating a standard operating procedure structure, having AI help you build it. The nice thing is once you have it built, you put it into a MindManager setup, get it all laid out, and then post that in a HTML5. Now you've got, instead of having manuals for all your employees, now you have a link where your employees can go on and see processes and procedures for different parts of their industry or their business. And I've used this for helping clients set up their SOP, and it's amazing doing it that way.
That's one use case I have not had a chance to really work with anyone on. I'm excited to see some of that if we can offline one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the nice thing is whoever's working on the SOP or making changes, they can make changes in one spot, push up, publish the change, and now everybody's got the up-to-date information on the standard operating procedure. We have people in lots of different industries that use this. The last one that I worked with was in the financial advisor industry, and you set up your SOP. There's one place, one source you'd make the changes, and everybody gets it just automatically.
Streamline. For sure.
Yeah. Well, Jared, do we have any other questions?
No questions from the audience. I know that for us, at least here at CoreLogics, it's becoming our go-to planning, execution, and then review of what we've done. And you can customize it with live stuff. You can get everything in one place. And there's not much out there that you can have everything in one place. You start off with planning, but then it goes by the wayside. This is, day by day, looking at it, updating it, and then reviewing it to see, oh, what did we go wrong? Oh, did we do this? Oh, we didn't do this. Oh, maybe we should try this next time. So it's kept us more accountable and more organized. And it's just made things much more efficient here at CoreLogics, which is awesome.
Yeah, we've tried a ton of different productivity software, just like any other business, right? We're the same. We're trying to find better ways to do things. And what I have found personally is a lot of these are fragmented. They have some of it, but they don't have all of it. And you find that MindManager has, what do you want? Do you want a Gantt chart? Do you want a Kanban chart? Do you want to do, a different kind of an analysis? you know, what do you want to do? You've pretty much got it. And I think that's the power behind MindManager is it gives you that flexibility, and especially with the smart tasks, you know, so is it smart tasks,
Smart
Alex?
rules.
Smart rules.
Smart
Thank you.
rules. Yeah.
Smart rules and filters that you can have this thing sing and dance. I don't think it washes windows, but you know, it does everything else.
Yeah, good for the team person as well as the manager, because you can filter it to watch other people, but as well as just the individual like myself who's just, oh, what do I got going on? I can look at it, but as well as the manager who can filter it to get even more granular and, oh, what do I need to follow up with this person or this person? And very good for project management or any sort of managing of whatever you got going on with your business, which is really cool.
And Alex, I think it's worth mentioning too, and maybe you can just kind of briefly kind of talk about this, is the collaboration part of it.
Oh yeah, so that's something we didn't have much time to really dive into, but the collaboration components are things like the ability to have co-editing. So let's go back to the home ribbon here. So if we go to the publishing, this is the item that you heard Gary talking about. So publishing allows you to essentially push this to a bookmarkable link. That way, as you start to make updates to your material, the actual end users that receive this link don't have to hound you for another copy. They just keep that link, bookmark it, like I said, and then they can come in and see everything up to date. There is also content control when it comes to the collaborative space. So this allows you to set a password for the file, and that then tells you that you can turn on or turn off editable functions. So maybe you don't want people changing the start dates or due dates. Maybe you've already assigned all of the resources. You don't want them changing those. Maybe you have assigned the levels of priority for your specific items and you want all of those to stay the same no matter what. So everybody else that doesn't have this password, they can go in, they can keep editing, but only the folks that you give the password to have the power to edit levels of priority, start dates, due dates, assign things to people. So without that password, you know, everyone else is locked out of those things. They can still comment, add tags and icons, they can still update the level of progress, you know, you name it. So when it comes to collaboration, because these maps are meant to be shared and meant to be used by everyone, content control is definitely one of the things to keep in your back pocket. But you're absolutely right, Gary. I mean, you can use this cross-platform. So somebody can be on Mac, somebody can be on Windows, somebody could just use the web version, somebody else could use the Microsoft Teams plugin version, but all of that data could speak to one location, one map, right? So, I mean, if you have that file stored in SharePoint, you can open it from Teams, you can open it from your PC, you can open it from your Mac, you can open it from web, and all of those different users could still be editing that document simultaneously. But again, with content control, you could ensure that everybody is locked out of whatever you don't want them touching if you are that file owner, the original, you know, author of that document. Great question, and thank you.
Yeah, no, and there are certain things when it comes to software that we just love. A lot of it is the flexibility, and that's why we love the Act CRM software because it allows us the flexibility. But like you just said, I can be on different platforms, a mobile device, a web device. I can be offline and have and share and collaborate content data with regards to contacts in my database. This very similar. So there's such a nice fit as far as how things work as you know, from the Act CRM to MindManager. It's just for those who really want to up their game, who are serious about making some leaps forward, and I'm talking about giant leaps, not little baby steps either. Getting out of this fragmented piece. When we do assessments for companies, we'll see all these fragmented components all over the place. You want to start bringing this together and have this collaboration with yourself and your team, or even people that maybe don't belong. Like we have, we're working with a company in Winnipeg, and they have some marketing people that work that don't work in their office, but they need access to information. You can give them access. You can give them in this mind map. You can give them a shareable link, and they can go in and see this and drill down and filter and have a look at all this information and make decisions on how things are doing. And you know, to be able to do that is amazing.
Yeah, it
I
can be
don't
you
have
can make
any.
stuff for your clients, which is cool. It doesn't have to just
Oh,
be just internal. It can be you make something up, send it to them. They can look at it, see it
exactly.
and, tell you, give you feedback. So yeah, it's nice that it's not just linear to just internal stuff. It
Yeah,
can be used for all
exactly.
sorts of stuff. Anyway, I interrupted you. Sorry, Gary.
No, 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 that's fine. That's fine. So I don't see any other questions on the board, but Alex, thank you so much for spending time going through this with us today. This has been
Hmm.
brilliant. I love the whole concept, and one of the things that was on there is it does have we had this link in there uh, to Jira, but you'll also notice that there's other links that Alex showed, and one of them was Zapier. And maybe on a future one, we can talk about integrating to other applications through Zapier as something to look at. The more we can connect the dots and not have isolated islands of information and processes and stuff, the more we can bring it in, the better for you. It gives you more time to do other things and be on top of what's going on. Any final comments, Alex, before we wrap up?
Just, of course, always a pleasure working with you and your team there at CoreLogics. We obviously have a lot of features to talk about. So, I mean, we can't jam pack everything into one session. So, tell your audience, keep coming back. I'm not
Yeah,
going anywhere.
yeah, absolutely. And by the way, if you've got a specific thing that you want to know about, let us know because we can put that on the docket and then have a live stream or even do a recording if you wish of specific things that you're interested in knowing or getting a deeper dive into with regards to MindManager. And we're happy to facilitate that and help you kind of get the best out of it that you can. Jared, any last comments from you?
Nope. Yeah. No, thanks, Alex. It's always a great presentation. Always learn quite a bit myself. Very powerful, very customizable, just very good at keeping everything together for a company or even for just for your clients. It's just such a good organizational tool and visual tool at the same time. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
I
There
love
you
that visual tool. I love that. I'm going to adopt that.
I'm a visual learner, man, and that's the thing too. You can, if you don't like it a certain way, you can change it, change the chart a different way, how you like to learn, how you like to manage things, which is very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks to Alex and Jared. Thank you for showing up today for this. Hopefully, this has been beneficial to you, and that you've gained some leverage in your particular realm of life and business, and that this can make a difference for you. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great one. We'll catch you on the next live stream. Bye for now, everyone.